morning. Welcome to the First Unitarian Church in Providence, where we love beyond belief. My friend, the Reverend Lynn Ungar, published an entire volume of reflections and poetry across this pandemic year, so it's perhaps not surprising that I'm finding so much to draw on as we are bringing this extraordinary church year to a close. Our opening words are drawn from her piece, Toilet Paper. How many rolls of toilet paper will make you safe? How many bottles of Purell? How much peanut butter or pasta, bread or beer? How much money will make you secure? $10,000? $1 million? $1 billion and a yacht? At what point do you say, I have what I need? Ask the Buddha. He says, it is the nature of all things to change. It is the nature of all beings to suffer. It is natural for all beings to die. How many rolls will make you safe? Wouldn't it be better if you, yourself, were multi-layered, soft, and strong?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Ginny Fox. Please join me in reciting the chalice lighting. This light burns also in our hearts, and it lights our path towards harmony, justice, and hope for all.
cry. Peace and freedom is our cry. Peace and freedom is our cry. Without these, this world will die. Peace and freedom is our cry.
Rebirth by Reverend Elizabeth Tarbox. When the day is too bright or the night is too dark, and your feelings are like an avalanche barreling down the mountain of events outside your control, when you look down and you are falling and you cannot see the bottom, or when your pain has eaten you and you are nothing but an empty, hungry hole, then there is an opportunity for giving. Don't stay home and cover your head with a pillow. Go outside. Plant a tulip bulb in the ground. That is an act of rebirth. Sprinkle breadcrumbs for the squirrels or sunflower seeds for the birds. That is a claiming of life. And when you have done that, or if you cannot do that, go stare at a tree whose leaves are letting go for its very survival. Pick up a leaf, stare at it. It is life. It has something to teach you. You are as precious as the birds, or the tulips, or the tree whose crenellated bark protects the insects who seek its shelter. You are an amazing, complex being with poetry in your arteries and charity layered beneath your skin. You have before you a day full of opportunities for living and giving. Do not think you know all there is to know about yourself, for you have not given enough away yet to be able to claim self-knowledge. Do you have work to do today? Then do it as if your life were hanging in the balance. Do it fiercely, as if it mattered, for it does. Do not think the world doesn't need you. Think again. You cleanse the world with your breathing. You beautify the world with your thinking and acting and caring. Don't stay home and suffocate on your sorrow. Go outside and give yourself to the world's asking.
Good morning, friends and yet-to-be friends. Here at First U, we transform love into action by the sharing of the joys and sorrows that connect us. A candle of sympathy for Barbara White died of cardiac arrest at her home in Florida 2 days after her 83rd birthday. You could send cards to Maureen Johnson. Her address is in our directory. A candle of hope and comfort for our 95-year-old Anne Duong, who is now in hospice care. With love from your extended family, Janet, Jim, Shirley, Mel, Alyssa, Tony, Claudia, Rob, Steve, and Cal. A candle of peace for Steve McCoy as he flies to Nebraska this Thursday to say goodbye to his brother, who is also now in hospice care with bladder cancer. A candle of gratitude for the Living LGBTQ Soul Circle for painting the rainbow steps in the front of the church. You have to see them. A big thank you all. A candle of joy to the Connor family who celebrates the birth of William Bradford Lachey on May 7th, 2021, Welcome to the world, little one. A candle of joy to Douglas Smith and William Ayers on their wedding this afternoon here at First U. My friends, let us rest in the gladness that we have each other to share our joys and sorrows. It makes all the difference. I'm going to offer some words on resilience, followed by a time of silence. If you have lost someone this year that you are remembering this morning, please stand or raise your hand in silent tribute. The silence will end with a gentle chime. To begin, I want to ask you to relax, to let your bodies feel themselves where they are. Drop your shoulders, feel your weight. Drop your head, close your eyes. Please take a deep breath with me. And again. I want to invite you to say some words and then to repeat them throughout the meditation. Say with me these words: all will be well, all will be well, all manner of things will be well. This is Meg Barnhouse's Conversation with Julian of Norwich. I said, Julian, you are holy. You are holding my hand. She said, all will be well. All will be well. All manner of things will be well. And I said, Julian, do you not know about sorrow? Do you not know about pain? Do you not know about hunger? Do you not know about shame? And I said, Julian, do you not know about loneliness? Do you not know about disease? Do you not know about cruelty? It's too much. It brought me to my knees. She said, all will be well. All will be well. All manner of things will be well. She said, no one does not know about sorrow. No one does not know about pain. No one does not know about hunger. No one does not know about shame. She said, no one does not know about loneliness. No one does not know about disease. No one does not know about cruelty. I know it's too much. It brought me to my knees, where I heard, all will be well. All will be well. All manner of things will be well. And I said, Julian, you are holy. You are holding my hand. She said, dear one, do you not know about tenderness? Do you not know about friends? She said, dear one, do you not know about the Spirit? Do you not know it's only love that never ends? It's only love that never ends. And so, all will be well. All will be well. All manner of things will be well. And I said, I see, we are holy. Thank you for holding my hand.
Last March, when we were just starting down the winding, unblazed, surreal path of COVID, I preached that we had to realize this would be a marathon and not a sprint, that we would need real resilience, a word that has become omnipresent in recent years, a word we talk about so much, I thought, maybe, because we actually think we may not have it. We may have lost it. Modern conveniences and privileges may have made us soft and not resilient. So all this focus on resilience may be more about wanting it than having it. We are possibly trying to talk resilience back into existence among us and within us, in which case all the talk and declarations and intentions about it in the world would not be enough. We would need real resilience to get through this. And part of that real resilience, I thought, could come from the fact, the beautiful, firm fact, that we have each other. Each other to help when we need it. Each other to lean on. Each other to vent to. Each other to share with, to find our way forward with, together. And now, here we are, over a year later, and we have got masks and protocols, we have got quick tests, we have got excellent vaccines, we have got spring negotiating a mercurial way towards summer, we have got travel bans beginning to lift, we have devastating outbreaks in Brazil and India, we have anti-vaxxers and misinformation spread by conspiracy theorists and Russian disinformation operatives. We have most white people in our state already vaccinated, and only about 20% of people of color vaccinated. We have vaccines going to waste, and we have shift workers who still haven't been able to get an appointment. We have so much to be grateful for, and so much that still burdens us. All of which brings me to that saying, whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger. This principle was first laid out by the 19th century German philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche. And there are a lot of studies which show that by and large, Nietzsche's declaration is true, which is something of a comfort. But it only gets us so far. Not least because Nietzsche famously and tragically and completely lost his mind at the end of his life. So this insight from the same man who gave us the death of God and nihilism is nowhere near enough all by itself for us to turn to when our own lives and living are challenged, when our own souls are struggling, when resilience needs to be not just the watchword of our time, but a lived reality, day by day, when the fact that we have not been killed isn't necessarily making us feel stronger at all. Sometimes quite the opposite. This feels especially relevant now, having just been hit by the 1-2 punches of the last few years. First, the last presidency, with its exceptional levels of deceit and vainglory and manipulation. And then, the once-in-a-century worldwide pandemic that has killed over 3.5 million people and is not over. A pandemic that was itself politicized by that same administration to become a further source of rupture and alienation. The degree to which this has traumatized the world and all of us is easy to overgeneralize, but impossible to overstate, because trauma is not just broad and real, it is deep and it has visceral impact on every one of us. Visceral, viscera guts. Some of us have lost people we adore. Some of us were never able to be with them at the end because of health restrictions. Some of us have lost employment, homes, financial security for ourselves or our children, self-respect, work that was at the center of our lives or our families. Some of us have lost our long-term health. Some of us have lost trust in our nation or our leaders. Some of us have lost years off our lives. Some of us have lost a foundational sense of self, of ability to move through the challenges that life throws at us. Some of us have lost heart. And some of us have lost hope. Some of us who haven't suffered most of these things are still also bone tired and not sleeping well and unsure of what is safe for us or our loved ones, waiting for the next variant, the next shoe to fall, the next blow to fall. What do we do with all this? With the universal trauma every one of us has experienced, some worse than others, but none of us has escaped unscathed. In some places, pandemic restrictions are being lifted, and vaccines are available, and the sun is shining, and things are getting better. And in others, it is still hell. And yes, variants are still developing. We need this to end. And in some ways it feels like it's ending, and we have survived it, but what does it mean to move on from something that hasn't really ended, the scope of which is still unknown? My dear friend, Doug Creed, teaches at URI. He is a business professor with a focus on issues of workplace diversity and equality. And resilience is an element in Doug's work, which makes sense when you think about it, because if you are going to deal with issues like diversity and equity in the workplace, you are definitely going to need resilience in there. And one of the resilience resources Doug was telling me about recently is the work of Jerry White. Now, I have to tell you, I am really glad that Doug was the way I encountered this book, because I will be honest, I tend to be snobbish about self-help books. A guide to, and this is the title, Getting Up When Life Knocks You Down, does not sound like it holds the keys to the kingdom to me. But, as Jerry White himself points out, there is universal challenge when dealing with trauma because, on the one hand, as he puts it, as Lynn Ungar put it in our opening reading, everyone has a date with disaster, which could be kind of perversely comforting while simultaneously chilling. But while we all have dates with disaster, dealing with those disasters is not just as simple as whatever doesn't kill you makes you strong. In part because, as Mr. White says, there is a critical element of choice involved. We have to decide whether whatever will ultimately make us stronger or overwhelm us in the end. Though in the short term, we can all be overwhelmed or empty, and that's fine. It's the long term that he's talking about, and long-term happy endings aren't a given, so we cannot take them for granted. We cannot expect that if we just kick back, it's going to get better. A fundamental lesson that suffering teaches us is that happy endings have to be chosen every time. To which I would add, let's not just dwell on the fact that they have to be chosen. Let's also give gratitude to the fact that a happy ending even just can be chosen, even after terrible suffering. Terrible suffering. We can choose a happy ending. and we must choose one if we are to get it. This means changing that age-old religious question of why. Why do bad things happen to good people? Why is this happening to us? Why is it happening to me? To how. Over the course of a life, suffering is inevitable. How do I absorb these blows and move through them to a life that is still worth living, a life that still holds joy, a soul that still holds hope? Jerry White, who is, by the way, a graduate of Brown University, learned this when he was 20 years old, and he was in Israel, and he stepped on a landmine that had been left over from the 6 Days War many decades earlier, and it blew off the lower half of his right leg. There followed a harrowing journey out of what was now clearly a minefield, a harrowing amputation, a harrowing and lengthy rehabilitation, all in Israel, far from everything that was familiar or comforting to him. He's a Catholic boy who grew up in Cohasset. Harrowing, meaning horrifying, terrifying, anguishing. Harrowing also because of Mr. White's choices in the original agricultural sense. It means plowing with a massive piece of equipment that is made of long, heavy teeth and is dragged over the land to break it up, to remove weeds, to cover freshly planted seed. I look up Jerry White now to make sure I'm getting his stats right, and it doesn't say Jerry White amputee. The internet tells me he is professor of practice at the University of Virginia and president of JW Impact Strategies, LLC. It says he co-led the renowned international campaign to ban landmines. It says that he is the co-recipient of the 1997 Nobel Peace Prize, that he worked closely with Princess Diana and Queen Noor, that he is a senior Ashoka Fellow, recognized for a lifetime of social entrepreneurship in service to humanity, and that he co-founded Survival Corps, which helps victims of war rebuild their lives. This is a man who has been harrowed. Jerry White says there are 5 elements, because yes, this is a self-help book when all is said and done. Although, as he stresses from the outset, this is not a journey anyone can make by themselves. You don't get 5 things you just do by yourself, and it's like that. It may be normal and understandable that withdrawal is so often our response when we are feeling overwhelmed, but he says that is what eventually will kill you. Going back to those initial thoughts on resilience over a year ago, we really do need each other to survive. But more on that in a bit. Because the first step, he says, is face facts. And I know, this would also be a good prescription for the reactionary trend in our country that goes deny facts, but that's for another sermon. Face facts. This is about winning our own way back to life, back to happiness, even in a time that is demanding so much from us. And for that, we cannot get anywhere if we won't acknowledge whatever reality is fundamentally facing us. As Jerry White himself says, this first step can be the toughest one. It can happen quickly, even overwhelmingly, or it can require a lot of effort over time, work to accomplish, and it can look very different for each of us. But this is how we break through denial. And this is how we allow our grief to do its work in us. Look at our losses realistically. Put aside illusions about what could have been or should have been. What did this look like for Jerry White? It took him almost 2 years to accept that his right leg was really gone, that the stump and the scars were permanent. And when he finally did, he had this stunning revelation. My leg will never grow back. But I can still have sex. Whew. That was it. That was his revelation. Number 2, choose life. And this basically means we have to say yes to the future. We want our life to go on in a positive way, even though we recognize suffering that we have behind us or ahead of us. We still want our life to go on in a positive way. We can imagine a life that is more than our body, more than our trauma, more than our diagnosis. And it takes a while to get to this also. Remember that whole 2-year period before Jerry White's revelation? On this point, Mr. White talks about the desire that we frequently all have to be like Rip Van Winkle, sleeping through and past his crisis, which was the American Revolutionary War, waking up when it's over. That's not actually where my mind always goes, although it sometimes does, but I can't count the number of times I have been in excruciating pain, unable to eat, unable to sleep, feeling sometimes like I could not even breathe. And my mind always goes to the same impossible, ridiculous refrain. I don't know how many of us remember this, but when I was little, there used to be an ad on TV for Calgon bath powder. And it was always the same. Some woman would be increasingly overwhelmed by the details and stress of life, and finally she would cry, "Calgon, take me away!" And whoosh, the next thing we knew, she was in like a sunken pool with pillars and panoramas and her hair artistically piled on her head, and she would be having the most luxurious, relaxing, radiant bath ever in the history of humankind. And when things get really bad for me, I always think of that bizarre cry, "Calgon, take me away." I just want to be whisked away from this abyss that it feels like I'm in. It's not that I want the bath and the views. I just want to be gone. I just want to be in a place that is not shaped by pain and grief. But of course, that's impossible. It, whatever the it is, it will never be over. And the landscape will never change. Not until I have worked it through, which very unfortunately never happens by bathing your way through it. So every time I have to deal with what's happening and commit to a better later. Because my alternative is just to dwell in this sense of loss and even victimhood, living more in the past than the present, let alone with hope for the future. I have to find the affirmation and locate myself there, which can be very hard and is always possible. This is a lesson my sister taught me. I realize it's almost 20 years ago now that I was incredibly sick in a hospital in Greece. I had been bitten by a dog, and the infection had gone deep into my leg, and for weeks, public hospital doctors had done nothing but extract dying tissue from my leg every day using a forceps and no pain medication. Eventually, the infection went so deep that it started to threaten my bone and my leg and my life. And at that point, I was terrified. I finally ended up in a private hospital in Athens where I did not know what was going to happen. Within minutes of walking into the hospital, I was on IV antibiotics, and within an hour, I was in surgery, and I was terrified. And I talked to my sister Jenny on the phone while I was in the hospital, recovering for many days after the operation, wondering if it and the drugs and the antibiotics would work. And my sister, who has lived with a mortal illness since she was in her late teens, who has more than once thought her time was up, told me, whatever is going on, you are still you. You may feel afraid and lost, and you may not be able to control what happens to your body, but you are still you, no matter what. You are still you, and I want you to hold on to that. And it was the best thing she could have told me, which is why I remember it still vividly. Decades later, her affirmation brought me peace and a sense that I could deal no matter what. I can still feel it just talking about it now with you. In the end, that's what Jerry White is saying also. I was still me, and I needed the relationships around me, including my sister, half a world away on the phone, to remember that, to help me ground myself and get through the illness and the fear and deal with what was happening to me day by day. Which brings me to his third point. Reach out. Let the people in your life into your life. We need peers and friends and family to break the isolation and loneliness that always, always comes with trauma and crisis. I love how he laid this out, because to me his words are all about first you, about church, about beloved community, about a big part of why we are all here. He says, when you are in a deep, dark, relentless pit of pain, it is hard to think of others, but make no mistake about it, they are there. Others are in the room with you. Others are in the wing of the hospital for you, in prayer for you, in kitchens cooking for you, on cell phones spreading the word on your behalf. In trauma, you may have become the lead character, but there is an ensemble cast of participants and a host of witnesses. How you keep the door open to relationships will determine the extent to which you are able to thrive, even years later. Amen. Amen. And how this pandemic has shown us the literally countless ways we can and will be here for each other, so that no one, even amidst the isolation and challenges of a pandemic, is all alone. But this isn't just about church. As Jerry White counsels, when we reach out, make part of that reaching, seeking empathy, but not pity, from people who have been through something similar. Pay attention to what you're feeling and let people know what you're feeling, but don't let your feelings dictate everything, because that way takes you eventually to the land of self-pity, and past the land of self-pity, the island of narcissism. Pay attention to your feelings and acknowledge them in order to gain perspective on them. Use your connections to others to help you maintain perspective, and remember that it is up to you to reach out for someone else's hand, because no one survives alone. His fourth element, get moving, because sitting still, sitting back, gets you nowhere. Literally, emotionally, spiritually, nowhere. Get out of bed, the room, your home. Generate momentum. When Mr. White was recovering from his amputation in an Israeli hospital, a nurse was going to let him go to the cafeteria for the first time. He got into a wheelchair, and as he writes, and the nurse, she looked down at me, and she left. And the lesson he learned that day remains essential. If you want to move, push. No one is going to do your work for you. No one is going to actually make you better. It's your life. And 5, give back. Give back. In the end, the difference between merely surviving and actually thriving, according to Jerry White, comes down to our own ability to give even after what we've been through, to offer service, to do acts of kindness, just as the beautiful Reverend Elizabeth Tarbox wrote in our reading, and she knew something about suffering. Don't stay at home and suffocate on your sorrow. Go outside and give yourself to the world's asking. Jerry White puts it more baldly. He says, around the world, those who became super survivors, they are missing all their legs and half their face, and they barely have a job. Why are they smiling? I want to drink whatever they are drinking. They never got the memo that their life sucks. Again and again, he has seen that survivors who become thrivers are leaders in their community. They are givers back in small and big ways. This does not mean you have to be extraordinary. You do not have to be Nelson Mandela, who of course he met. But he is purposely saying, none of us has to be Nelson Mandela. Jerry White instead suggests you could be, as he puts it, a mini-Della. Just stay in the game. Just stay in your community. Day after day, give yourself to the world's asking. Though this was a self-help book, it was not easy reading. There was a lot of trauma. Holocaust survivors, former child soldiers, former prisoners of war, wartime gang rape survivors, shooting survivors, landmine survivors, the degree of suffering, of horror people survive and, yes, thrive after is astonishing and in some ways daunting. Given what some people have been through, they're finding their way forward into a good life at all seemed at times not un-Nelson Mandela-like. It is literally transcendent, and it is inspiring. There is nothing so terrible people cannot make their way through it and come out the other side with lives worth living, lives filled with love, with joy, with hope, with gifts to give, and so much to share. It is religious. Remember the lesson of the Buddha that Lynn Ungar gave us, and also that Hinduism holds, right? Both of them believe that suffering is universal and inevitable, but not injustice. Suffering is education, meant to help us gain perspective and rebalance us, helping us to address our weaknesses and learn and change and grow. He quotes a hurricane survivor, Hurricane Katrina refugee, who says, "My life now is not inherently less good because I no longer live in New Orleans. My suffering comes from my attachment to the way I remember the city and the me that I was in that life and thought I would always be." In the end, life makes amputees, survivors, refugees of us all. We have all lost. We all will lose ones who are essential parts of our spiritual body. We have all survived, will survive devastations that inevitably leave us hurt, maimed, scarred. We have all been, will be, refugees who have left behind a life we loved and cannot have again. We are also healers and healed. We are also lucky. We have all also eluded disasters that almost struck us but did not, some of which we did not even notice as the disaster passed us by. We are also, what is the opposite of refugee? Native? Yes. Resident? Yes. Immigrants? Yes. Citizens? Phoenixes? People who come and stay in a new life, in a new place, who find their way and spread their wings again. Resilient. Amen. Here we are, coming to the close of our regular church year. This is the time for our weekly offering. Many of you have stepped up, growing numbers over the course of the year to contribute, knowing that this was a gap in the budget that we've been trying to make up. Some of you haven't done it yet. It is not too late. The church year is not over. You could do it now. You could do it right now where I'm talking. You can do it during the offertory. You can do it later today. You can make a gift just for this week. You can make a gift for every one of the weeks that we have given you our best all year long. Please give as generously as you are able for the life and the work of this beloved community, and thank you. Thank you for all that you give and all that you do and all that you are.
And play.
I should move 'cause New York is getting muddy out. There's a lake, but it's always kind of sunny out, and I don't wanna hurt no more. So I set my bar real low. I'm A-okay, I'm A-okay.
You say it, but you just don't mean it.
You're so insane, you're so insane.
Shut up and just enjoy this feeling.
Don't you love it, don't you love it? No, I ain't happy yet.
But I'm way less sad.
Don't you love it, don't you love it? No, I ain't happy yet.
But I'm way less sad. Way less sad. I wake up and I'm not so mad at Twitter now. Living sucks and it's sucking just a little now, and I don't want to cry no more. So I set my bar real low.
I'm A-okay, I'm A-okay.
You say it, but you just don't mean it.
You're so insane, you're so insane.
Shut up and just enjoy this feeling.
Don't you love it, don't you love it?
No, I ain't happy yet, but I'm way less sad.
Don't you love it, don't you love it?
No, I ain't happy yet, but I'm way less sad. I may be wrong, I may be wrong. It's stupid, but it's all I have.
Don't you love it, don't you love it?
No, I ain't happy yet, but I'm way less sad. Well, I can't fall asleep and I'm losing my mind 'cause it's 3:30 and my brain's on fire. I've been counting sheep, but the sheep all died, and I'm trying too hard, but I can't
don't you love it?
No, I ain't happy yet, but I'm way less sad. Way less sad.
Way less sad.
Way less sad.
Way less sad.
This is the time for the invitations we like to extend about different ways to live out our faith, usually very immediate or coming up this week. And I have one invitation for you this week, which is, speaking of giving back, this has been a year when we have tried to hold each other as strongly and safely as we could. Just within our church, I have heard of so many ways that people have reached out and cared in tangible ways for each other. Bringing groceries, making testing or vaccination appointments, being COVID buddies, the 6 feet apart chorus, dropping off flowers or food or care packages for First U. This is your chance to name a gratitude you feel for care you have known within or beyond our church. So what we're going to do is, all of us here at First U every Sunday are going to bring the flowers on your behalf. And what we're asking you to contribute to give back, is a quick line, a sentence at most, about some good thing that was done for you this year that you appreciate, that helped you hold on or made a difference just when you needed it. Maybe it's something you were able to do for somebody else. We hope we'll hear a lot about the many ways that the church has tried to hold itself and its people and people beyond our congregation, but it might be that what you have to share is something completely outside of the church. That's great. All we need is one sentence, and your gratitude will mean so much to those being thanked. So please email your phrase or your sentence to our Director of Religious Education, Kathy Sagal, dre@firstunitarianprov.org. You probably have the address. Email your phrase or sentence to our DRE by the evening of this coming Wednesday, June 9th, so that we can build it into the service. I am hoping we will have many, many tens at the very least of phrases and sentences, because so much good work and love has been shared. For every gratitude that is shared, we will add a flower to the vases that we'll have at the front of the church. The beautiful bouquets that we usually give each other flowers from during the service will be this year a display of all that has been given and received between us. We will bring the flowers. You share what you're grateful for, what you're glad you got the chance to do for someone else. I cannot wait to see the amazing strength and beauty of this community on display next Sunday. Our closing words draw on the writing of the great Black 20th century writer and thinker James Baldwin. Not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced. He was certainly not talking about everyone coming through this time of worldwide and individual trauma when he shared that insight. But as is so often the case with his great wisdom, it holds regardless of context. We cannot change everything, but changing anything, including ourselves and our capacities to come through this time of extraordinary challenge and extraordinary opportunity, depends on our facing facts, naming what is before us, around us, within us, in order to deal with it. It is the foundation of any real resilience, that we see and say, what is real, terrible, or wonderful as it may be. And from that beginning comes everything.
We carry the flame of peace and love and hope until we meet again.
I'll let you know when
want to start. Here we go. 1, 2. Struck by don't buy a bee sting, nothing but a bee thing. Probably better buy it at the mall. But there's a 23 to 4, the one that you can fall in love by the end of this song. So get up, tell the bookie put a bet up, not a dang thing can go wrong. The odds are that we will probably be alright. Odds are we're gonna be alright tonight. The odds are that we will probably be alright. Odds are we're gonna be alright for another night. Hit by an A train, crashed in the airplane. I wouldn't recommend either one. Killed by a great white or a meteorite. I guess there ain't no way to go, that's fun. But somewhere in the world someone is gonna fall in love by the end of this song. So get up, no I'm never gonna let up, so you might as well sing along. Sing it! The odds are that we will probably be alright. Odds are we're gonna be alright. The odds are that we will probably be alright. Oh, we're gonna be alright. Don't things go wrong, I'll take my chances, odds are long. So why not play? Ready? Here we go. Struck
by lightning sounds pretty frightening, but you know the chances are so small.
hit by an A train, crashed in an airplane. You'd probably better buy it at the mall. But there's a 23 to 4 to 1 that you can fall in love by the end of this song. So
Get up!
no, I'm never gonna let up, so you might as well sing along. The odds are that